speak, and she is extremely knowledgeable about this.
Thank you, Charlie. Thanks everybody for being here today. I really appreciate it. You guys want to move up a little bit? There we go. Move up, get in the shade. Be friendly. Be friendly. Gun violence prevention group folks are, we're friendly. We're friendly, and we have a lot of love in our heart. And thank you guys very much for being here. And as one of my favorite poets once said, just particularly reminded by what you guys have said. He said, "Beneath the scherzo, I hear the death knell." And that means a lot to us simply because we know what it's like. We know what it's like. We only have a certain amount of time. We never know when that's going to happen. We never know. So we hold each other as close as we possibly can. So come in close, it'll be okay. So as Charlie said, I'm Penny Okamoto. I'm the executive director of Ceasefire Oregon and the Ceasefire Oregon Education Foundation. This gentleman right here is actually my favorite poet and my husband, Russell. And Ceasefire Oregon works to prevent gun violence. We work for effective common sense gun laws, and we work by educating the public about safe storage, current gun laws, and suicide prevention. And some of the stuff you heard today was, okay, this is great, but how do I know how to do that? What do I do? Well, I've been working on this pretty much for about 16 years now. Ceasefire Oregon Education Foundation, which just works on education, started in 1994. And so they've been doing this for about 22 years now. And then the advocacy group that works in legislation has been working since 2000. So we've been doing this a long time. We've been down in the trenches, down in Salem for a long time. And for many, many years, we were kind of like little Dutch boy with our finger, you know, in the dam, just making sure things don't explode. And we did a great job of that. But after Sandy Hook, things really got cooking. So why are we here today? Today, June 2nd, has been set aside to make people aware of gun violence. You've heard about Hadia Pendleton and her courageous friends who've gotten together. We have the Wear Orange campaign because of her today. And we are truly honored and humbled to be here to honor Hadia and all people who have been victims of gun violence, whether they've been shot, injured, intimidated, harassed, all of them. We're honored to be here to honor them. Gun violence awareness, however, isn't just about learning the scope of this ongoing tragedy. It's not enough to know that 491 people were shot to death just in Oregon alone in 2014. And only 380 people were killed in car crashes. So we've lost 111 more people to gunshot death just in 2014 than car crashes. Why? Because we're making cars safer and we're having people drive safer. But we're not doing the same thing for firearms. So we need to learn what we can do as a nation, a city, a state, and citizens to stop this senseless violence. You get out of the sun here a little bit. So one of the things we can do is we've got a plan. Ceasefire Oregon has a plan. You can go to our website, you can learn a lot of facts, and if you don't know what it is, email Ceasefire Oregon at ceasefireoregon.org. I will personally answer your email. I get a lot of emails, so if I don't, call me. It's all on our website, okay? The things we can do, though, nationally and as a state, we can increase the standards of gun ownership. What does this mean? So right now, if you're a felon, adjudicated mentally ill, or have a misdemeanor for domestic violence, you can't have a gun. Well, what about the person who shot you? Was that a felony? I hope so. But if it wasn't, what are we going to do about that? We need to make sure that people who have violent misdemeanors cannot have guns. People who have drug and alcohol problems, who are statistically more likely to commit a crime by gun, cannot have a gun. Yes. I'm sorry? Sex traffickers, exactly. So we need to increase the standard for who can actually have a gun in the United States. Simply a felon or domestic violence misdemeanor is not enough. It needs to be more. As I was saying earlier, we know that people who have drug and alcohol convictions are more likely to commit a crime with a gun. We need to not let them have guns for 10 years. Let them get their lives back together. Let them get things straightened out before they're allowed to have a gun again. We can enhance the accountability of federally licensed firearms dealers. We know that 80% of all crime guns come from just 5% of the dealers. We need to make sure those dealers are put out of business. The Brady campaign does a great job. They have a great job. They have the bad apple gun dealers. We need to make sure that those people are out of business. And we need to make sure that we've got money for the ATF. Now, if the Republican Congress really wants to do something about gun violence, how about a little more money for the ATF so we can have people come in and take a look at the federally licensed firearms dealers? Now, again, the vast majority, about 90-95% of gun dealers do the right thing every single time. They do a background check. They do what they're supposed to do. We got to go after the people who aren't. The third we can implement firearm safety measures, like a chamber-loaded indicator. So you can actually look at a gun and know if there's still a bullet in the chamber. Because too many people's famous last words or infamous last words were, "Don't worry, it's not loaded." We can have a magazine disconnect mechanism so people can easily and readily stop the gun from shooting. And we need to use smart gun technology. So if someone does steal a gun, they cannot use it. And finally, we need to send our assault rifles like the AR-15 back to the hell they came from. Now you might ask what exactly an assault rifle is. I'll tell you what, General McChrystal, who's the former commander of the Joint Special Operations Command, knows what they are, and he says that they are not for civilian use. They don't belong in the American streets. The late President Ronald Reagan was certainly familiar with assault rifles, and he did not support civilian ownership of assault rifles. And Jim Sullivan, who designed the AR-15, recently just said that it was not intended for civilian use. So when people ask you, well, exactly what is an assault rifle? You tell them every single man, woman, and child in Newtown, Connecticut knows exactly what an assault rifle is. So this is not a game of semantics. These are people's lives we're dealing with. All right, so Ceasefire Oregon, what is our mission? We have 3 branches. Our first branch is education. We mostly focus on safe storage, Ask campaign, Asking Saves Kids. When you go to somebody else's home, when your kids are over there, ask if there's a gun there. If it is, make sure it's locked up and unloaded while your kids are there. This is not about whether guns are good or bad. This is about making sure that we reduce the gun violence. We also talk about suicide prevention. Because when kids commit suicide with a gun, 82% of them, 82% of teens who commit suicide with a gun get that gun from the home of a parent or a friend. So it's not just your guns, it's your friends' guns too, and their friends' guns. And also self-defense gun use. We always hear this, Rambo coming in, good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun. That's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. The Violence Policy Center just did a study. Fewer than 300 uses of a gun last year, in the year studied, were actually successful self-defense gun uses. Most of the case, it's not. It's like your daughter. It's not. So we need to be educated about that. So what group do you join? Why am I here? Why is Charlie here? What do you do? What group do you join? Join all of them. Join all of them, seriously. Because we have great gun violence prevention groups here in Oregon. We've got, of course, Moms Demand Action, okay? We've got Ceasefire Oregon, Voting Orange.
Voting Orange, baby.
Okay, then we've got Brady Campaign. We've got Gun Owners for Responsible Ownership, which is also connected up with ARS. And we've got the Gun Alliance, the Oregon Alliance for Gun Safety. What do they all do? We all do different things, okay? Every town, so I should explain, every town, Moms Demand Action is actually a program of every town. So when we're talking about, thank you, hon. So when we're talking about every town, we're talking about Moms Demand Action. Thank you. When every town came onto the scene, it was kind of like having a younger, rich, big sister. Seriously, it was great. All of a sudden, it wasn't just Ceasefire Oregon anymore. We had people who could afford lobbyists. We had people who could afford great social media campaigns. They were awesome. But one of the things they do, they work on the big bills. They work on the background checks bill and things like that. Okay, Ceasefire Oregon, we work on those too, but we're a little tiny group. Okay, well we have several thousand people actually, but not compared to the 80,000 that moms have in Oregon. But we do things that are a little bit different because we work on things that are a little bit different. And one of the things we work on, for example, in addition to the big bills, we work on the smaller bills. We work on reciprocity. We work on kind of those little arcane bills that people don't really hear about a lot. But that's what we do. Another thing we do is because we've been doing this for so long, we know who to go to. We know who's over here who can help us, and who's over there who can help us, and who's over there who can help us. We've got a lot of great connections because we've been doing this so long. Brady Campaign, they protect the Brady Bill. The Brady Bill. Okay, and the Brady Bill, we sometimes forget. The reason we have the Brady Bill was because Republican President Reagan was shot So when your Republican friends talk about this, you can remind them that a Republican president was shot. That's why we have the Brady bill. Okay, they protect that, but they also do a lot of other great things like the Ask campaign, just like we do, but they also do the bad apple gun dealers. So they do a lot of great stuff too. So who do you join? All of them, seriously, because we're all like one big family. And I say that, I'm so happy to say that, because all of our groups work together like one big family. We all have our different strengths. We all have our different weaknesses. Actually, you know what? We don't have any weaknesses. We don't. We just have awesome strengths. That's really the truth. Okay, all right. Thank you for picking these up, by the way. I really appreciate that. Did you ever give a speech and then everything fell away and got out of order? Okay, here we go. Okay, so like I said, I've been working on this since 2000, and I've seen a lot of changes in the past few years, especially since Newtown, but also after the Umpqua shooting, and not just in Oregon, but nationwide. So one of the interesting things I saw was just a few months ago, a legislator in Oregon who was not a supporter of our work, he was a Democrat, but he didn't support our work, actually changed his mind, and he supported HB 4147, which is the Charleston loophole bill. And in addition, he also submitted his own gun violence prevention bill. You could have scraped my chin up off the floor. I could not believe it, but he did it. It was great, okay? And why? Because we spoke out. And just today, I received a copy of a letter from Senator Ted Ferrioli of John Day. He's a Republican leader in the Senate. He lamented, quote, "Prior to the last session, Senate Republicans were continually told there would be no firearms legislation. Unfortunately, that was not the case." You're darn straight that's not the case. And you know why? Because people like you and people all over Oregon stood up and said, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We just had the Umpqua shooting. We just had the worst shooting in Oregon's history. And you were not going to do anything about it?" No. You people were there, and I guarantee you that changed minds. So we did that. So we've got incredible momentum. Those things are moving, and those things are happening because of you people. And what are we going to do in 2017? Well, in 2017, I hope that we do something called an extreme violence protective order. And what that's going to say is something basically like, if you've got someone in the family who is going through a crisis and shouldn't have guns, you're going to have a way to call someone and have that person's guns removed temporarily. That's exactly what we need. That would have stopped the shooting at the Isla Vista shooting in California. The parents went to the police and said, "Please help us." And the police said, "We can't do anything." Weeks later, 6 people were dead, 3 of them stabbed, 3 of them shot to death. That could have been prevented by a bill like this. So here's the national agenda for the NRA for 2017. So the NRA wants to have a national 50-state concealed carry license bill that will allow people to carry dangerous loaded guns anywhere in the United States, even if states with strong laws are against it. That means that people can come in and carry concealed guns here. One of the things that people don't realize, if you can't have a concealed gun here in Oregon, to get a concealed handgun license in Oregon, you don't even need to touch a gun. You don't even need to touch a gun to get a concealed handgun license in Oregon. And we got 200,000 people who've got that license. Now, some people get all the training they need. They get a lot of training. They get situational training. They get training on conflict de-escalation. They get a lot of training, and that's great, you know. And they like to think of themselves as the best of the best. Okay, fine. But if you're not getting any of that, you're the meh of the meh. We don't need that. Okay. So that's one of the things the NRA wants to do. The other thing the NRA wants to do is eliminate the ATF's power to prevent surplus military weapons from being imported over here from overseas. Like, we need more military weapons. They also want to lift the ban on silencers. And they also want to make permanent a ban on CDC-funded gun research. Now, I like to tell people, the number one reason we have gun violence in America, the number one reason, people think it's poverty, it's ignorance, it's this, it's that. It's simply because the gun lobby needs to sell more guns. We got 310 million guns here in the United States. That's a lot of guns. And what the NRA sees it as is a saturated market. That gun lobby knows that the more laws we pass and the more we talk about the realities of gun violence, the fewer guns they're going to sell, and they're not going to make as much money. So the number one reason we have gun violence in America today is because the gun lobby has got to sell guns. Where else are they going to sell them? Where else are they going to sell them where there are such lax laws? Nowhere. Okay, so we're really glad you're here in Orange today. I am so glad everyone can be here. I truly appreciate all of your time. You can go to ceasefireoregon.org. We got a lot of information. You got questions, email me. I will answer it, okay? If I don't get back to you soon enough, call me, okay? I will answer it, all right? But also think about what you're going to do next. This is great. We want to do this, but what are we going to do next? We need to make sure we're contacting our legislators now, because whatever happens in the 2017 legislative session gets decided in September and October. So you need to contact them now. And you can be polite, but you can say in no uncertain terms, we're going to do something about gun violence, or I'm going to go somewhere else. Maybe you've got a Democrat like Betsy Johnson, who's up in Scappoose, she's a Democrat, and she says, hey, I'm not gonna vote for this issue. I don't support this issue at all. And you say, okay, I'm not gonna vote for you. She's like, fine, you're not gonna vote for Republican. But then you tell her this. This does not make me popular in the Democratic Party, I have to admit. But then you tell her this, fine, I'm not gonna give you any money. And I'm not gonna give Democratic Party any money. Not a dime. In fact, any money I was gonna give to the Democratic Party, I'm gonna give to Everytown. I'm gonna give to the NAACP. I'm gonna give to Ceasefire Oregon. I'm gonna bury in my backyard and burn it before I give to you guys. Because one of the reasons we didn't get a big bill passed was because of Senator Peter Courtney. He's the lead senator, Democratic senator. That's gotta stop. That's gotta stop. So you let them know exactly where you stand and exactly why you stand, and there's no need to be apologetic about it at all. So anyway, thank you all for being here today. You guys are just wonderful for being out here. Thank you, and my thanks and honors to all of the victims. Thank you.
So, as I said, we have another partner, and so our last speaker will be Martha Moultrie from the